Good morning, everyone. I'm back with another process video today. As you can see, still working on 6x8 pocket pages. These are more photos from Glasgow. These are from the Glasgow Cathedral. It's also known as St. Mungo's. So if you're a Harry Potter fan, that probably sounds familiar to you. St. Mungo is the hospital or a hospital in the wizarding world, but in real life, St. Mungo's is a church in Glasgow. And I absolutely loved it. The architecture is fantastic. The pictures are going to be a little bit tricky to work with. Notice the coloring here. It's a lot of brown, kind of an amber color, gold. That's kind of it in a lot of these photos. It's very different from when I was doing my photos of the cathedral that we went to in Edinburgh, because there was a lot more color choice in those photos. So I'm gonna have to get creative with these, because I have I have this one, and I think I have at least two, maybe three more photos or layouts to come that are all from the cathedral. One of them is I'm going to do it just to the stained glass. There is lots of color there, or at least somewhat more to choose from. So those might be a little easier, but the rest of them, I'm going to have this same problem. So what I've decided to do with these is, if you look at this photo here, and then here, this is kind of a funny photo too. Look at how all of these are. They're so stately. And the architecture, is very old world and very refined and elegant. And then you have this in the church, which is quite different. It's just kind of standing up on its own in the middle of this cathedral. Look at the bright colors on it, certainly compared to the others. And then you've got this skull and crossbones here. So I don't know exactly what this was supposed to be or why it's in there, but it's quite different from the other things that are around it. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to use that in some way. Well, there's blue in here. So I thought, okay, I'm going to pull out the blue then, because we need to have something other than, gray and amber in these pictures. So I'm going with the blue. I did pull this little tag that it also is a navy color here, and I think it's going to go down here. It either has to be here or here. I don't like putting labels in the center. It looks weird to me. So I always have to go more towards the bottom, more towards the top. So it'll be one of those options. And then I found this 4x6 card that I like, and it has some gold tones, which work, I think with most of the photos, and some gray to work with, those aspects. But then I had this in my stash, this little epoxy pennant, and I actually made this myself, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, I think maybe a month. I have punches from Epiphany Crafts, and I don't think they're in business anymore. Or maybe they were bought out by somebody, but they made punches where you put these epoxy shapes, in there, and you choose your paper, you punch, and then it adheres to the back of here, and so you get your own little pendant. So I just pulled out a bunch of scraps that I had, made a bunch of these, and this was one of them. So I figured, okay, that's navy, but it's got a nice little pattern, and so maybe that will work. So I think I'm going to put it right here, maybe on this card, so that I have blue there, blue somewhere over here, and then plus this. So as I start this, we'll see if it comes together the way that I hope it will. So I went through all of my 3x4 cards because this photo, I decided I want to have a background on it. So I cut it slightly smaller than 3x4 because, again, I'm worried about that blue. I want to make sure that I bring more of that in here so it has a little bit of a pop of color that's going to distinguish it from the other layouts that have a very similar color palette. So I did cut it down a little bit smaller than 3x4, and I couldn't find any of my cards with just some kind of blue background that would be acceptable to me. So that wasn't going to work. So I went into my stash and I found this paper. Does it have a busy pattern on it? Yes, it does. But I decided most of that is going to be covered up, so I'm going to go with it. And the tones in here, I mean, they do work with, the kind of tan amber thing that's happening. So with the photo on top of it, it's going to look like that. And I think that's pretty acceptable because it also grabs this tone right here and in here that I think will work. that's how it's going to look. So I think that's okay. I think with that blue and this little piece, I think it's okay. And it does give it a little pop. And because this thing, whatever it is kind of so funky that I thought, well, why not then? We're going to have some funky paper to match. So I'm going to go with that. I did adhere the photo, so now that's on there. I also adhered my little pennant, and I just used glue dots to do that, so that is on there. Now I have to figure out what I'm going to stamp on this little label here, and then I don't think I mentioned it in the previous segments of the video, but I have 2 photos sitting here. I obviously only have 1 slot left, so I'm doing a flip up here with these, so it'll open and it'll look like this, but that means I have to find a card for the back of this. And I gotta tell you, it's a lot easier, at least for me, to find 3x4 cards that work for what I want than it is to find a 4x6. I don't know if it's just the industry doesn't make as many 4x6 cards, or because I don't buy like the Project Life core kits or anything like that. Maybe that's why I'm not getting as many 4x6s. I don't know. But so I'll have to go through my stash and see what I can find that might work in this kind of setting on this layout that I can put in between those 2 photos. So I'm going to go rummage through my stash and we'll see what I find. Well, people, always be prepared for plan B. So I went through my stash, couldn't find anything that I liked, so I decided I was going to go into the Project Life app, find a card that would be suitable, and I'm just going to print it at home. So you'll get to see a little bit of my printing process. So I have a Canon. It's a Pixma. It is, focus, an MG7120. So I have my 4x6 paper already loaded in the tray. This is the card I chose. So I'm going to show you. I click on this, if it'll go, there we go. And I want to print. There it is. Yep, that's the one I want. So then I'm going to just hit print and away we go. So sometimes you have to be ready for the unexpected, because I just didn't have what I needed. So we'll wait a second here while this comes out. If you've never used the Project Life app, or you have but you just do everything digitally, you've never printed, this is a great option. It's pretty fast. You know, I went in, found what I wanted in about, I don't know, a minute or 2, cut my paper to have it ready. I didn't have any 4x6 ready to go. So I cut my paper. You saw what I just did to print, and now here it is. Almost ready. Should be shooting out there any second. I'm sure other people do this different ways. This is the way that I always do it. So if you know other tricks and tips about using Project Life to get a card that you want to print at home, or if you have some other kind of process that you go through, let me know. I'm always interested to hear what other people are doing. But what I like about this is that I could find what I needed in kits that I had already bought, digital kits on the app, and then I could just print it out and it's ready to go in a minute. So there is my card. I will let that sit just for a moment so it can dry, but then I'll be able to use it. Okay, so you saw that I printed out my card. It only takes, about a minute to make sure the ink is really dry, and I have inserted it in the flip. So here's the top. That's what you'll see when you flip it over, and then here's the photo on the bottom. So I'm going to adhere that since it's ready. So I'm just going to peel that off, and then it's just a matter of lining it up here to make sure that everything is straight and matches and all of that. I've done this in other videos, but if this is the first one you're watching where I've done a flip, it will cover up one of the holes. Not a problem if you have something magical like a crocodile. So I just cheat a little bit. So here it is. It's adhered right. Okay. Then here's the hole that I covered up. Kind of hard to see, but there it is. So I just take this. I take my crocodile. Oops, that's the 1/8 side. You definitely need a 3/16 hole. A 1/8 is not going to be big enough. So you really just line up your crocodile with the holes you can see there. That's in the page protector, and you go through it. So now I have fixed that problem. So I have the hole that I need for the binder, but this is attached and we're good to go. As I'm working through these photos, I realized I need my visual triangle in some way. So I've got this pennant. I'm going to have this label down here, which I still don't know what's going to be on that. I needed something either here or here to give me that triangle. And I think I have found it. It kind of goes along with the theme of this layout, so maybe it was meant to be. Part of the reason why when I saw this, I knew it was the one, was because of something that happened while we were at this cathedral. I am not a religious person. I'm not a person of faith. However, my daughter is. And she kind of had a spiritual experience at this place. She just felt that there was a presence there. She's 20, you know, so, and strong in her faith. And so I believe her if that's, you know, what she says she was feeling. You know, and it was so strong that it brought tears to her eyes, and she was crying a little bit in the cathedral and just really having this overwhelming experience. And so I thought, well, how fitting is it that the card says, wherever you are, be all there. And for her, she was. Then when I was going through my stuff to find something to put over here, I looked at these little words and look at, have a little faith. So I think I have to put that up here. And then, you know, I planned to mention it at some point, but I really was going to say, you know, oh, the architecture was fabulous, and there was this weird other thing there, you know, talk about that kind of. I think I have to talk, you know, at least somewhat about her experience then, because I think that's where this layout is leading, is that, you know, was an important story of our trip, certainly for her. And so it needs to be included. So I think we're going to go with this one since it's there. And that's going to be what's up here. While I was off camera, I took care of a couple of things. I did this label, so I just kept it very simple, just did "We were here," put in a staple. I had that "Have a little faith" phrase down, and then I found a little blue enamel dot, and that one is from this set by Chamel, in case you're looking for that. And then I decided that those cards that I had picked needed a little something, so I'd use some gold Heidi Shine. It's a little bit harder to see on this one. It's very subtle. There's a tiny one, and there's one that just barely overlaps the photo. There are a couple small ones on there, but I thought just enough. Oh, there's one right at the corner. Just a little bit to bring that in. And then I pulled this card as well because it seemed very flat without anything else on it. So I just did a little bit of gold around there as well. I did ink the edges on both of these, and I have decided, that I want to do this one as well. And that brings in that brownish amber tone that I talked about earlier. So we'll just ink that really quickly. There we go. So that helps just give a little bit of definition, especially because this is so white here. So I think that's probably it for this layout. I don't need to do too much more enhancement there. So because this is a flip, I'm just going to take this and I'm going to slide it back in there if it'll cooperate. There we go. Yeah. So there you go. That's how it looks behind the page protector. And then we'll put this one in the pocket up here. And then this is a chalk ink, so it does take a little bit to dry, but it should be fine. It's been sitting there for maybe, 30 seconds. All right. I will do my journaling off camera, but this is, let's scooch that over a little bit. There we go. This is the finished layout. So, you know, didn't have to do a whole lot to it, but this layout definitely took a detour from where I thought it was going to go when I started. So if that ever happens to you when you're working on something, don't feel bad. It happens to everybody, and sometimes it turns out better that way. And I'm quite pleased with this, and now I get to tell a little bit of a different story than I had expected when I started. So I'm I'm pleased with that. I think my camera froze for a second there. Now it looks like it's back. But even though it took a little bit of a turn from where I thought it was going to go, I'm happy with how it ended up, and I'm glad you were here to watch the process. Thanks for watching.